sky. Don't let it all go passing by. You know you only get one life.
Ted Williams once said, "Baseball is a game of failure. The best players fail 7 out of 10 times. The great ones keep fighting." Few men embodied those qualities more than today's guest, former Philadelphia Phillies shortstop and manager, Larry Bowa. From undrafted underdog to World Series champion, Larry became the heartbeat of a team that defined an era. Alongside icons like Mike Schmidt, Pete Rose, and Steve Carlton, he carried the weight of expectation and proved that grit can outlast doubt. Larry Bowa will not only be remembered as an outstanding player and manager, but also as a man who embodied resilience, leadership, and an undeniable will to win. And today, I have the honor of sharing his story with you. Now, let's welcome Larry Bowa to the show. Larry, how you doing? Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm having a good time, relaxing here till I still work with the Phillies, and when they're on the road, I usually go out and watch our minor leagues. But today I'm not doing anything, and hopefully we can get a win in New York tonight. We've had some problems up there, so.
Yeah, it definitely was a little bit difficult to watch the last couple games. It seems like it's an issue playing in that stadium. So hopefully we'll get it together tonight. With the lead we have though on them, if we can at least win one, it makes it a little harder. You know what I mean? So that
Yeah, I'm not. I'm really not. I mean, I respect the Mets, but I'm not concerned about them catching us. But like you said, if we just win tonight, they pick up one game, so it's a big swing for the Mets more so than us.
yeah.
Even if by chance that something happened and we got swept here, we still have a 4 game lead. Although they do come to Philly, I think in about 10 days for 4 games. So you want to have that difference between 5 and 6 games if you could, because I think a lot of these races, ours in particular, are going to go down, especially for the wild card, down to the last week, 5 days, week to a week. It's that close.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm having fun, but I will tell you I'm a little nervous, but I think we'll be all right. So hopefully we'll get it together. But Larry, I'm in Philadelphia. Obviously, you played for the Phillies, managed the Phillies, still work with the Phillies. Just for some of the folks outside of the area who may not be as familiar, could you just, high level brief introduction of yourself?
Well, obviously my name's Larry Bowa. Uh, I signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. I never got drafted. I didn't make my high school team. I got cut every year. Uh, Junior college coach saw me playing in a summer league after I didn't play high school, and he asked me to come out. And I looked at him and sort of laughed. I said, "I didn't even make my high school team. How am I going to make your team?" And he says, "I will give you every opportunity to play." And I went there and I made all conference 2 years in a row. And there was a scout out in Northern California named Eddie Bachman who scouted for the Phillies. He signed me and basically ended up playing 16 years in the big leagues, got over 2,000 hits. I mean, the rap on me, I shouldn't say the rap, the scouting report on me was he's going to be a real good fielder. He's quick. He's got a good arm. The question mark's going to be his bat. And through hard work and great coaches that I had, to get over 2,000 hits is something that I look back on and say, any goal is attainable if you want to work hard. And like I said, I worked extremely hard, but again, with coaches that I respected. My dad helped me a lot. He played as high as AAA. The reason I didn't make high school, the coach, he didn't tell me I wasn't good enough. He said, "You're too small." And of course, my dad, playing as high as AAA, said, "Don't worry about size. You don't have to be 6'5" in baseball. You have to be big in football and basketball, but baseball, there's a position for everybody on the field if you can do other things." And that's exactly what I did to have a 16-year career in the big leagues.
And Larry, I'm grateful growing up watching you that I had influences in my life that kind of focused me towards somebody like you. And I think it was because of what you just described. Obviously, you played with some greats in Schmidt, Rose, and I think though you resonated with somebody like me growing up. I played some shortstop too, and I loved watching you. And as a kid, it kind of gave me more hope to see somebody like you doing the things you were doing. So I am grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, and you know, when I talk to young kids, I try to tell them, don't let anybody tell you can't do something. I mean, if you want it bad enough and you're willing to sacrifice and put in the time and the work and the effort, and you have good coaches or a good support system helping you, I think any goal is attainable. You know, obviously there's goals. Like I wasn't a power hitter, so for me to say I want to hit 30 home runs, that's not attainable. But I could do other things. You know, I move runners. I could play defense. I could steal bases. You know, I won a couple of Gold Gloves. I made 5 All-Star teams. But again, it was a matter of me wanting it, and I used a lot of negative articles that I received when I first came up, and used that to really push me forward. Sometimes when you keep reading negative stuff about yourself, the thing that first comes into my mind is, well, I'm going to show you that hard work does pay off. And that's what I try to tell young kids. There's no shortcuts. I don't care if you're a banker, you want to be the best banker. If you're a gym teacher, you want to be the best gym teacher. And when I put on that baseball uniform, I wanted to be one of the best shortstops ever to play. And, you know, I thought I did a good job playing, won a World Series, which is probably the highlight. I can look back at all individual things, winning Gold Gloves, stealing bases, hitting 300. But the one thing people ask me, it was the greatest memory. It's not even close. Winning the first ever World Series in Philly history in 1980, when we beat Kansas City 4-2. That's something that the first ever is always going to be the first ever. And the fact that there was such a big drought here in Philadelphia for a championship team, that was something very special.
Yeah, it sure was, Larry. And yeah, I think everything you just said there, I think, you know, you set the stage and really helped it define a team from that era. And I know even for me now at, you know, 53, I still look back at that team and those memories really, really fondly. Larry, I'm curious though, is like, even as a younger kid, what did baseball really mean to you? What drew you to it? And then was there a moment when you realized that maybe baseball could be your life?
Well, I was always around a bat and ball because, like I said, my dad played. He got as high as AAA. So there's always equipment there in the house, a ball, a bat, a glove. And my dad, who at times worked 3 jobs after he got out of baseball, he was always there for me. He never pushed me. He never says, oh, we got to go do this. But when he came home from work, one of his jobs, I'd say, let's go to the park and hit. Always there and giving me words of advice, how to play the game, what I have to do because I wasn't a big guy. You got to be able to play team baseball. So I think if I had to pick one person to guide me, it was my dad. And then, of course, as you get older, you have other people come into your life that they're very influential for you. But I think I realized I wanted to play big league baseball. I shouldn't say big league. I wanted to play professional baseball because at that time, the odds of me making a big league team, not getting drafted, not playing high school probably were way off the charts. So I said, well, maybe if I can play in the minor leagues or something. So I think from the time probably after Little League, because I dominated Little League, I had a good arm, I pitched and played shortstop. I think after that, and of course, when I played back in the day, there was always a game on once a week, whether it was the Yankees, the White Sox, whoever it was, that I would watch every Saturday. And a couple times the White Sox were on, and they had 2 little guys playing short and second, Louis Aparicio and Nellie Fox. And I'm looking at these 2 guys, and I'm saying, now these guys aren't big at all, but they do very well on the baseball. They catch the ball, they put the ball in play, they run the bases right, they catch everything. They don't make mental mistakes. So watching them, obviously, when I was growing up, and I'm saying to myself, well, it's not going to be impossible here now because these 2 guys are fairly small. And so, you know, like I said, then the rest sort of fell into place for me. And looking back on it, I'm glad I got to watch those 2 guys because, you know, when you watch baseball players, especially now, they're big dudes and now they're strong, 6'2", 240, they're sculpted. They got these diets they're on. They got personal trainers. They got so much going for them right now. And if you really wanted it with all the extra stuff that they have to offer you, there shouldn't be any reason why you shouldn't make it. But back then, we didn't have all that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I remember, I think it was last year, uh, Brandon Marsh. Not he doesn't look big on the team with some of the other guys, and then I seen him on a golf course on TV with regular guys, and I was just floored by.
He's a big
Yeah,
dude.
oh my God, yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Yeah,
It's funny, like we'll watch sometimes, and like Trey is like, oh, Trey's not the biggest guy, but Trey's like 6'2". So yeah,
right. But Brandon
it-
Marsh, he's one of those guys. When you look at him from a distance, you say, "Oh, he's not that big." Then the closer you get, the bigger he gets. And he
yeah.
was a tremendous athlete in, I guess, high school.
Mm.
And obviously, he picked the right sport to be a professional.
Yeah, yeah, I'll say, yeah, we definitely enjoy watching him and a lot of the guys on the current team. Larry, you mentioned this a little bit, and we're talking now about it, but as far as not maybe being the biggest guy, and when in order to carve out your career, like what role did really resilience and grit play in that and proving those doubters wrong?
Oh man, I just think that I could be the first to tell you when I went to spring training my very first year, I saw all these players, even in A ball, that were bigger and stronger than me. And I'm not going to lie to you. I said, man, this is going to be a tough road. But again, through hard work and dedicating myself, doing the right things, paying attention, I think my baseball IQ mind was off the charts. I think that had a lot to do with my dad, how to play the game the right way, learning how to move runners, sacrifice bunting. Uh, and I knew on the team, the 80 team that won, I was going to be a complimentary piece. Like you said earlier in the podcast, I played with Schmidt. I played with Rose. I played with Steve Carlton. I played Lazinski. I mean, these guys are all superstars. And I figured I would have my niche basically doing little things, moving runners, getting on base for the big guys. Early in my career, I hit near the top of the lineup. Later in my career, I hit down towards the bottom. You still have roles in the lineup that present itself to help the team win. And my job every night was, what can I do tonight to help our team win a baseball game? It might not be get hits. It might be making a great play. It might be going first to third on a base hit. It might be laying a bunt down to move runners from first and second to second and third, and the next guy comes up and gets a base hit. So these are the things that went through my mind to be, you're one of the guys that can help these big guys get their numbers, get the RBIs, get the home runs. And so I think you have to know thyself. Charlie Manuel always had that saying, know thyself, know what you are. I knew I wasn't a home run hitter. I knew that. I knew I put the ball in play. I had great bat to ball skills. So use that to your advantage. Anything I could use to my advantage. But at the end of the day, I can honestly tell you, I've talked to a lot of players I played with, and there's a lot of guys that say, I wish I would have done this, or I wish. I can honestly tell you, as we're talking today, there's nothing I look back on that I say, God, I wish, because I worked hard. If there was one wish, it would have been nice to hit a few more home runs, but I knew that was out of the picture. But I gave everything I had. I played every game like it was my last game. I mean, my dad always told me, you play 9 innings, 27 outs, no matter where you are in the standings, no matter what you're hitting, play the game the right way, give everything you have. And when you sit down in your cubicle at the end of the game and say, you know what? I did everything in my power. I played as hard as I could. I might have gone 0 for 4, or I might have made an error, but I could actually look in the mirror and say, I left it all out there. And that's basically it was my mantra. Leave everything out there. Don't try to save stuff for the next day. Like, play the game that you love, play it like it might not happen again. And that's how I basically played for 16 years in the big leagues. And I played a lot. I wasn't a big guy. I played a lot of games every year. I didn't have days off. I didn't have workloads. It was one of those, to be honest with you, I was afraid to get out of the lineup because I knew my ability. There's guys in the minor leagues waiting to take my job. So if I figured if I stepped aside and let somebody come up here and get 2 or 3 hits 2 or 3 days in a row, hey, maybe I'd be sent back down to the minor leagues. So I didn't want to get out of the lineup. And it wasn't playing scared. It was playing, I'm not letting anybody take this position. And that's how I basically approach baseball day in and day out.
Yeah, Larry, and some of the other stuff you said there reminded me of just, I think you mentioned things about, and you hear it sometimes, right? A lot of I think your generation, even from my generation, talk more about playing the right way. And I had a coach before, he used you specifically with me as an example about playing the right way. And Larry, I still remember this, and I'll tell you this. I was at bat 3-0, bases loaded, take sign on. I hit a grand slam and I was benched for 2 games. And he told me, you need to look at a guy like Larry Bowa. He does things the right way. You're a good player, but if you don't do things the right way, you're not going to be on my team. I still remember that vividly to this
And,
day, you
and
know?
then there's merit to that. I mean,
Hmm.
now do you let a power hitter hit 3-0? Probably. You don't let me hit 3-0. I didn't even look down there when it was 3-0. I
Yeah.
knew what I had to do. But a lot of times I took 2 strikes because
Mm-hmm.
I knew the guys coming up behind me were Schmidt, Lazinski, guys that could put 2 runs on the board real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always taught not what's good for me, what's good to create a winning atmosphere and a winning culture in that dugout.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be the first on to tell you, early in our career, when I say our, we had a group of guys come up together: Lazinski, me, Schmidt, Boone. We came through the minor leagues together. We learned how to win together and we learned how to lose together. But when we first got called up in the big leagues in the early '70s, we weren't a very good baseball team, but we knew we had a young team and we were growing each year. And then come mid '70s, man, we turned out to be really good. I mean, it would have been nice to win another World Series, but we kept playing the Dodgers with a big red machine. And those 2 teams, they were really good. And
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a play, an umpire's call, a pitch, whatever, we just kept coming up short. And then finally in '80, we put everything together. And you look back on that and say, man, if we could have maybe won 1 or 2 more against Cincinnati or the Dodgers, we could have had maybe 2 rings. But it's very difficult in baseball to repeat. I mean, the Yankee run they had back in the day is something special. You don't see it too often now. People
No.
reach it because I think there's so much competition now, and I'm not saying guys get comfortable when they win a World Series, but maybe you lose a little bit of that hungry attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I finally won a World Series, and I got to feel that. I feel sorry for players that were great that are in the Hall of Fame that never got to play in a World Series. That is something I'm glad I got to do. It's something that I'll take to my grave with me. Uh, it was the most emotional thing that I've ever seen happen on a baseball field for me. And the fact that it was the first one in Philly history, it made everything worthwhile. All the sweat, all the hard work, all the blisters that you hit in the batting cage for hours at a time in the off season to try to get better. All that stuff paid off. And if I had to do anything over again, I'd play it the exact same way I did. There's no question.
Larry, that season, if you take us back to that season, that World Series run, and like for me now, even thinking back, when you think about Schmidt, Carlton, Tug McGraw, and just as a kid, the energy I felt it in the city at the time. Would you still say, even now at this stage of your life, do you still get those chills when you think about that season?
Oh, no question. And people in Philadelphia, I don't know about any other city, they remember. I mean, you can walk in a restaurant now and people come up, oh, thank you for '80. And I mean, it's unbelievable. When you win a championship in this city, you're set basically. When you go into a bar to have a beer, when you go to a restaurant, people recognize you, and that's not what it's about. It's about that you made people happy by winning the division. And in 1980, we bring that up. Every team in 1980, the hockey team, the football team, the basketball team, the baseball team, all got to the finals. They were playing the last series, and we were the only one to come out on top. But to have a city have 4 big time sports teams go to the end of the road is something that I hope would happen here again, but I think it's very rare that it happens. And this city, the whole 1980, it was electric. Going out downtown during the middle of the day, you could feel the energy from all these teams getting to where they want to go,
Mm.
and it just made for a really happy summer and winter. And but it was something that was very rare. That if it happens again, I'm sure they'll bring up the 1980 teams in Philadelphia that did that, and one team came out on top.
Yeah, well, Larry, I mean, I think honestly, I think you guys will be remembered through generations to come still. Obviously, you were the first to do it. Um, I did want to ask you this since I had you, and you know, with the unfortunate passing of Pete, I mean, he was such a force, Pete Rose. I mean, he was relentless, fearless, and I mean, obviously, there was some controversy. Um,
Right.
what do you think his true legacy is, both for the Phillies and for the game of baseball?
Well, I'll be honest with you. If it wasn't for Pete and Dallas Green, let me throw in Dallas. I don't know if we win the World Series. They were. We had a bunch of guys that came up that were really close to each other, and maybe we needed someone to come in from the outside to give us that extra jolt. And Pete was the guy, obviously the player. And then when Dallas took over the managerial job, his personality, and I love Danny Ozark. I thought Danny did a great job for us. But Dallas' personality was completely different than Danny Ozark's. And he was more outspoken. He was more critical. If you had, if you didn't have thick skin, he wasn't afraid to jump anybody in that clubhouse. And I think at first, guys tried to rebel against that. But at the end, looking back, that had a lot to do with our success when showing that championship trophy in 1980.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think when I think back to that series, I still, as one of the plays, I'll never forget the ball bouncing out of Boone's glove and Pete
Right.
catching it like that. Again, I don't know. It's just for me as a kid, I remember those things. Like I said, I remember the way you played, how hard you played, and I remember something like that as vividly as you know, Tug striking out the last batter. Like that stuff is what resonates and still
Right.
sits in
You,
my mind.
and you know when that play when it popped out of Booney's glove and Pete was right there, you never feel as a player you respect the other team and you never say, "Oh, we're going to win this." But when that play happened, I in my mind I said that just doesn't happen unless it's meant to be.
Mm.
And it turned out it was meant to be. But I mean, where would you see that in a World Series where a catcher misses a ball and the first baseman's right there to catch it? And
Yeah.
you start thinking about these things as you progress through. You look back on that 1980 series, you say, "Man, it was just meant to be." We paid our dues. We came up short from 95 to really 79, and we finally got the reward we were looking for.
Absolutely. Um, when you think about your career and sharing that clubhouse with guys like Pete, Schmidt, all those guys, I was curious from your perspective because you went on as a manager. What obviously you're all different individuals. What would you say you took from each of those as individuals as far as your preparation, your competitiveness, and the way you ended up leading men after your career?
I think what you learn when you want to go from a player to whether it be a coach or a manager, I think it's much easier to play as a player. You worry about, hey, if I'm not doing good, I'm going to go out and hit extra. If I'm having trouble fielding ground balls, I'm going to take extra ground balls. But when you're a coach or a manager, you got to worry about, well, now it's 26 guys, but when we played, it was 20. You got to worry about 25 guys and not necessarily the starting lineup. Those guys are going to be happy every day. They know they're going to play. It's the extra guys. It's the pitcher that's a long man down there in the bullpen. It's a guy that's maybe not having a lot of success that you got to keep patting on the back and saying it's okay. I think making connections with guys that aren't the superstars, but they're on the team. What are you going to say to if you have a superstar player like Schmidt or Rose? Let them stay out of their way. Basically, it's the guys that are secondary that you want to keep pumping up and get the most out of their ability. So you can't neglect those players that, like myself, that can offer a lot to a team. You know the big boys are going to do their thing. You got to get those complementary players to do what they're supposed to do, and that's basically what forms a team.
Mm.
And when people say to me, and I hear this a lot, especially with analytics now, chemistry is not important. Chemistry is important. When you play every day, and you go to spring training in February, and you happen to be one of the last teams standing in October, late October, you're with that team much more than you're with your family. So you better have that tight knit group in there. Now, is it going to be smooth sailing along the way? No. You're going to have some incidents where maybe guys pushed and shoved each other, argued with each other. But the bottom line is when the umpire said play ball, we had each other's backs.
Mm.
And to see a team come together, I think if you're a coach or a manager, that's the greatest feeling in the world, especially when you're not supposed to win. Like when I took over in 2001 to manage, we weren't a very good team. And the fact that we played over 500 those 4 years, I got a lot out of that.
Mm.
Not individually, but the fact that we put together, we molded this team, and they started believing in themselves a little bit. So chemistry means a lot, in my opinion.
And Larry, when you did start to manage, I would say, I think it was, I think it's fair to say different generation
Right,
players were different.
right.
How did you navigate that old school in your face kind of approach with how some players don't respond well to that, I'll say.
That was. I have to say, I'll be honest with you. That was an issue for me, not for the player, because I expected, and it was wrong, really. In fact, I learned this in San Diego because that was my first year. I expected everyone to do what I did, work ethic. Oh, I got to take 100 ground balls. I got to swing 75 to 100 times before the game. Well, everybody's not like, everyone had more ability than me. Maybe they only had to take 50. But I fell into that trap saying, well, if I did it and I got the most out of my career, what would you do as a lot more tools than I had if you worked as hard as I did? But you know what? That was a bad approach because each guy's different. And I learned that in San Diego that you can't expect players to do what I did because I knew I had to work. Man, these guys were such good athletes. Their work maybe didn't have to take 100 ground balls or 50 ground balls. Maybe they only had to take 25. So after that first year in San Diego, I started learning that everybody's different. Don't expect them to do what you did because you were probably obsessed with working extra because my ability wasn't as good as everybody else's on paper.
Mm. I mean, I think that's fair, but it sounds like though from that answer, it's something that you obviously learned as you went along, which I think is a sign of a good leader. Um, Larry, from a player perspective and also from a leadership perspective, from a manager perspective, I guess this question, what I want to ask is, obviously baseball is a game of failure. Everybody fouls more than they succeed, pretty much. Is Eric? Can you share maybe a moment in your career where it really got to you and how you had to persevere? And then, did you ever see that kind of happen to any of your players that you had to really get in there and help pick them up?
Well, I can tell you about my career because it happened. I signed out of Sacramento, never been out of the state, went to spring training in Florida after they signed me. And then I was the starting shortstop for the Class A Spartanburg Phillies in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And so the fact that I won the job was very rewarding to me. The fact that I never got drafted, and there was a lot of number one picks, number two picks, third round picks, fourth round picks. And I'm looking around, I'm going, wow. And the fact that I won that job, it meant a lot to me. But the very first game, I wasn't switch hitting when I first signed. And so we were playing the Greenville Mets. And my very first game, I struck out 4 times in a row. And I was sitting on my locker, and Bob Wellman was the manager. He did a very good job managing. Trust me, I learned a lot from him. But he said, "Are you all right?" Because I was sort of slouched over in my chair. And I looked up at him. I called him Skip. I said, "Skip, if professional baseball is like this, you might want to put me on an airplane and go back to Sacramento." I mean, I felt like I had no chance. I was overmatched. And then he tells me, he goes, "This guy's going to be something special." And I'm thinking, okay, he's the manager. He's patting me on the back. He wants to build me up. So I said, okay, I'll just try to work a little bit harder. Well, that person that struck me out 4 times was Nolan Ryan. And so I look back at that and I'm going, that could have been a disaster. Very first game. And so from that day on, I went, man, I faced one of the better pitchers as I look back on it that ever put on a uniform. But I kept, working harder and harder, and things started happening for me. Now, on the other side of the coin, did I see anybody else go through that? I saw, God rest his soul, I just was a pallbearer at his funeral. I saw Ryan Sandberg start off when he got traded with me to the Cubs, 0 for 30. And he's a rookie. And they had him playing third, they had him playing second, they had him playing center when he first came up. But to watch this kid to endure starting a season off, coming over in a big trade, going over 30. I remember sitting down and talking with him. I said, hey, listen, you're swinging the bat good. Hang in there. Things are going to be, they're going to go your way, believe me. Mm-hmm. And this kid showed so much mental toughness that it wasn't on me. I just sort of patted him on the back. It was all on him and his hard work and dedication. And you saw the end result. Hall of Famer, one of the greatest second basemen of all time. He left us way too soon. Mm-hmm. But I look at that and I look back at this kid and I said, man, he got it. He could have thrown up his arms and said, hey, I'm going to have trouble playing up here. He dug in and worked harder and ended up being one of the greatest to ever put on a Cub uniform.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I was very, obviously you were extremely close. When I heard about it, I was kind of taken aback. I didn't realize he was as thick as he was. That's definitely really, really sad. Larry, when you did get traded, how does that impact you?
Well, it impacted me at the time. I basically created that trade. Before that season was over, I think 81, Ruly Carpenter was going to sell the team to Bill Giles. Mm-hmm. And so Ruly and I were talking, and he says, I'm selling the team. I said, I know. I said, and he says, I want to give you a 3 or 4 year contract. I said, that's what I want. And we shook hands on it. We couldn't sign anything because it was still in the process of changing hands. So I walked away from that meeting thinking, all right, I got 3 years, which I wanted. So once the transaction was made and Bill Giles Group took over and Ruly ended up selling the team, I get a call from Bill saying, hey, Bo, I'd like you to come in and I want to talk to you. And I'm figuring, okay, he wants me to sign this contract. So I said, okay, I'll be in the morning. So I go up there and we start talking and he goes, the first thing I want to say is I know you and Ruly had an agreement. I said, yeah, we shook hands on a 3-year deal. And he says, well, I'm the owner now, and I cannot justify this. He says, I'm going to give you a year. And I said, no. I said, that's not going to work, Bill. And I said, this was a gentleman's agreement. You and Ruly have been close friends. And I would think that once he told you, hey, Bo and I agreed, this is what we agreed on, that you would just implement it and have me sign the contract. And he says, well, the most I can give you is a year. And I said, well, then you can trade me. And then he says, is that what you want to do? And I said, yeah, but remember, I'm 5-10, so I have to okay any trade. So I got home that night, and lo and behold, I got a call from Dallas, who was with the Cubs at the time. And he said, would you okay a trade to come to Chicago? And, I said, well, I haven't thought about it. I said, but the way this is going on in Philly, if I was going to get traded, I would come with you. And then he said, well, I'm going to give you a 4-year deal at X amount of dollars. And I said, let's go with it. And that's how that trade happened. If I'd accepted the 1 year, which looking back, I just thought it would have been fair for me to get a 3-year. But looking back, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have taken the 1 year. I would have loved to just start my career in Philly and end it. But I saw these guys getting paid money that I know I was on the same plane with. And I think I was being shortchanged. And at that time, we made decent money, but it wasn't like now. And so I stuck to my principles and said, no, this was an agreement, a handshake by 2 men that Ruly basically said that won't be a problem with Bill. And I says, okay, fine, I'm good with it. And it didn't work out. Just to this day, I'm good friends with Bill. It's water under the bridge. I wish I wouldn't have reacted the way I did, but he got Rhino to a place where he ended up being a Hall of Fame player. So it worked out okay.
I guess one of those things, it's one of those, it's meant to be, right, Larry? And I mean,
yeah.
Obviously the way you handled it, way you're handling it now still. I mean, I
at the time I could say it was just as much my fault as Bill's, because I maybe if I'd have sat down and had more conversations, he might have changed his mind, and maybe he wouldn't have. But the fact that it was a gentleman's agreement, that's what bothered me more than anything. It wasn't the contract. It was, and Ruly basically told me, Bill and I get along. I'm selling the team to his group. Shouldn't be a problem. And then once there were snags in there, then I decided maybe I should leave. So that's how that happened.
Well, I know at least myself, I know many fans were definitely sorry to see you go. And that brings me to this. When it comes to Philadelphia and that team and you and the relationship and passion with the fans, and listen, obviously, brutally honest, the fans can be right or wrong, I'll
Oh
say.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
how did that push you, Larry, to even be better? And what did it teach you about accountability?
I think if I didn't play in Philly, I don't think I'd have been the player I was. The
Mm,
Philly fans make you prepare yourself. Now, I'm a firm believer that if you don't have mental toughness, you can't play here. Although the crowds now are different than they were back when we played. It was more of a hostile crowd at the vet. When I say hostile, I don't mean they were all mean, but there were some people out there that if you didn't do if you didn't get a couple hits with the bases loaded or you made an error, they're going to let you know about it. Which, you know what? That's how it's supposed to be. You're playing professional baseball. They want you to. Somebody told me, Jim Bunning told me once when I first went to spring training. He says, "Let me tell you, when you go to Philly, when they boo you, if you take it personal, you get run out of this city. You got to say, hey, they're booing you because the Phillies didn't score a run, or they're booing you because you made a mistake that cost your team 3 runs." He says, but if you start taking it personal, you have no chance of playing here. And that resonated with me every time things weren't going good and I got booed, because everybody that comes here gets booed. Mike Schmidt, the greatest ever to put on a uniform, he got hammered for the first 3 or 4 years, big time, because he hit under 200. But you could see the power, you could see the gracefulness in the field, you could see he was going to be a great player.
mm.
But the fact that you got booed, sometimes it was a compliment that they expect more out of you. So you better be prepared when you take the field here. And I think that helped me more than anything. The fact that they cared that much, they're very avid baseball fans. And I've been in coaching. I coached in New York. I coached in Seattle. I coached with Joe Torre, not only in New York, but in LA. The fan bases are all good, but it's a different fan base here. They want you to win more than anything here.
Mm.
And, in LA, they come in the third and they leave in the seventh. Seattle's very laid back. New York is probably the closest to the atmosphere that we have here in Philly. But I really think that they motivated me. Hey, be ready. Be ready to play the game that you're supposed to play it the right way. And at the end, they're going to love you. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and still loved, Larry. It leaves a legacy that goes beyond the playing career, and you made an impact on a lot of people. I remember my first game, 8 years old, 1980. My uncle took me. Walking in, he said this to me. I still never forget it. And he's since passed, but he looked at me. He said, "You may hear some things today that you may never hear again, but I'm just warning you." And yeah, I remember that game. I did hear some things that I was kind of like,
Right.
wow, like this was a different experience for an 8-year-old. So yeah, that
Oh, then
was
no question. No
interesting
question.
to say the least.
Yeah, it
Um,
is different.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you this, away from the game, when you look back at your career and some of the moments away from the spotlight, clubhouse, traveling, it's private conversations. Is there anything about your time with the Phillies outside of the actual playing the field that you really look back fondly and remember?
Wow. Well, obviously, there's a lot of things that for me to stay here from my first year was 1970, because I'm from California. And, people look at me like I'm crazy. Uh, you never went back to California to live? I said, no. Well, I fell in love with Philly. I love the Four Seasons. I go home now to Sacramento to see my sister a lot, but I've always stayed here. I think the thing that stands out when I was with the Phillies, whether it was Bill Giles, whether it was Rudy Carpenter, whether it was Dave Montgomery, they made sure their team was active in the community.
Hmm.
And I look back at that, whether it's the Children's Hospital make visits, whether it's doing something for the heart people, contributing and giving back to the community. And I think that enhances you sometimes when, hey, I'm not saying they're not going to boo you, but when you're visible out there and you're doing a lot of charitable work, people remember that. And I'm not saying they won't boo you. they still will boo you, but they know that, hey, you're part of the community. You've reestablished yourself. You moved your roots from California to Philadelphia, and you're one of us.
Mm.
And I think that stands out for me, being involved with ALS all those years. That has a lot to do with our front office at the time. They wanted players to get involved outside of baseball in the community. And you're looking back on that, I think that was something special that you look back on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I still, again, looking back, remember how active all you guys were, and just, it's really, and I think it's continued. I mean, you see even the
Yeah,
current team, I think that's a great thing. I think the teams, Phillies especially, do a great job of
yeah, they do. I mean, we
giving
got,
back.
guys like Schwarb and Aaron Nola have their charities, and everybody always goes to them. And
Mm.
I think it's important uh, once you're not on the baseball field, because these people come out and support you. They fill those seats. Like right now, we have a sellout every night here.
Mm.
And the fact that they care about you, it doesn't take that much to give back. And I take my hat off to these guys that have their charities here and support other things besides just playing baseball.
Yeah, kudos to all you guys who preceded them, still doing the work in the area, and to them. It's really, really
Right.
impressive to see. Larry, I had two last things for you. I did want to ask this. On this podcast, we talk a lot about mental health, mental toughness. And I think in the era you played in, I think the mental toughness was definitely something that was demanded. What do you think? Do you see a difference between the mental side of the game and the toughness needed between that era you played in and today?
Yeah, I do. There's more help for players now. We have a lot of mental health people that work for us now. They're always there for you 24 hours a day. This is a tough game. And I think you said it earlier. If you can't, I'm not saying accept failure. If you can't deal with failure, you're going to be in trouble, because the greatest hitters in baseball make 7 outs every 10 at bats. So you're failing a lot. Now, I always try to tell kids, if you were a heart specialist and you had 10 operations fixing people's hearts and 7 of them didn't make it off the table, you're probably going to be fired. Baseball, that's the norm. 7 out of 10, you're making outs, but they're Hall of Famers. So everybody's not that great. So you better be able to deal with it. And I think the mental skills people that they have in every organization, I think it's very important, because you can get wrapped up in, you start going 0 for 10, 0 for 15, 0 for 20. You don't know which way to turn to. Your players are patting you on the back, but maybe you need a professional to help you get through the dark times. I was looking back, if we had that. We didn't have that then. It'd have been good, because there were some times where, man, you thought you'd never get another hit, or you thought everybody was against you. And I think those mental skills people can keep your vision focused on what you're supposed to be thinking about. And I know that's a tough job for those people, but the fact that they're there for the players, we even have them in the minor leagues, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing having them in the big leagues, but when you have them in A-ball, AA, and AAA, I think that's great. That's a great asset to have for your organization. And there's a lot of kids, and the real good mental skills people, they don't do it in front of everybody. They'll say, hey, let's go to lunch. Or how about if I meet you at your hotel lobby and we'll talk? Little things like that to make it, if they come out on the field and talk to you, everyone's going to say, oh, what's that all about? They do it very discreetly, but very professionally. And I think it helps a lot of players. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's needed too, Larry. And I like to ask when I have guys on here, I love to ask it, because I think from at least what I'm trying to do with this podcast is, I think when they just hear somebody of your, somebody like you, for professional athlete, when they hear you just speak about it, I think that suffering in silence, and it's a stigma. I
Well,
think it opens the door for them to talk.
I agree with you. I mean, back in the day, if you asked for that, they would right away, they considered you a weak person.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the stigma that it had. Now, I like the fact that guys come out and say, you know what, I'm in a bad place right now, and I'm seeking help. Yeah, I think it helps people that are afraid to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. And the more we can talk about it, the more we can solve these issues before they get out of control. You can only keep things inside you for so long. You got to trust somebody or talk to somebody that you respect. And it's not always a baseball player. It's not always your manager. It's not always your trainer. Sometimes it's somebody that has nothing to do with you playing on the field. They get a different perspective when they're watching you. And when you talk to them, you can say things that you know is very confidential. It's not going to get back to anybody. No one's going to think you're weak. And I think when you have that asset, I think it's important that you take advantage of it. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for that, Larry. That's I definitely will be putting sound bites out, but that one will be for my platform. That may be the biggest one of this show. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Last thing I want to ask you is this. I love to ask guys who've had the success that you've had as, as a player, manager, Phillies icon at this point. What do you hope people remember most about Larry Bowa, the leader and the man?
I want them to recognize me as a guy that never, ever quit, gave 100% every game, no matter if you're winning 10-0, losing 10-0, whether you're 4 for 4 or 0 for 15. Play the game hard, play it right. My dad said, if you can't play 9 innings and 27 outs, no shortcuts. Do not take shortcuts. Shortcuts not going to help you. You got to go through the ups and downs. And sometimes it helps to hit rock bottom. There's nowhere else to go. You got to go up. This game is not one where you're going to stay on top of the world. There's going to be ups and downs. You just got to hope the peaks outnumber the valleys. And when you play every day 162 games, if you can say, I had more peaks than I had valleys, then you had a pretty good year. But I think that's very important for kids to recognize that play the game hard. Don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat your teammates. Don't cheat the fans. People pay big money to see you. You hit a ground ball, run the ball out. The easiest thing to do on a baseball field is to hustle. The hard thing is catching it, throwing it, pitching it, hitting it. Those are hard. The easiest thing is to give effort every time you're out there. And I try to stress that to young kids. I don't care if you're 0 for 20. Run hard when you hit a ground ball. Play hard. Respect your teammates. And it got me as far as I went. And to this day, like I said, I'll take this to my grave. I'm glad I played the game that way. It bothers me sometimes to see guys now, when they hit a ground ball, they're jogging at 50%. And I'm not saying run will you pull a hamstring. Give me a good effort every time. Don't be trotting down to first base. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse. You're getting paid good money, especially guys now. You're getting paid a lot of money. Give back to these fans that are sitting in the seats every night, sold out at Citizens Bank Park. Show them that there's effort every time you put that uniform on. And if you do that, I'm not going to say you'll never get booed, but I guarantee at the end you'll win these fans over.
Mm-hmm. Listen, all I can say is amen to that. I love the passion that you still show, Larry. It's fantastic. And I mean, from me, and I think a lot of the fans, we knew that you gave everything and left everything on that field. And we're all grateful for it. Grateful that you chose to stay here, Larry. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me on the podcast. And I wish you nothing but luck moving forward. And we need a win tonight. We got to get the Phils going back in action here. I'm not worried about it. Right now, there's a little bit of mystique going up there. We just, for some reason, we have problems. When they come down here, we're all right. But we got to find a way to win there because I think they're going to be in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be a high as C as we are. And we're going to probably have to play them again. So it'd be nice to win a couple games up there.
Yeah, amen. Go Phillies, right, Larry? Well, listen, I want to say thanks again, and thank you for everyone who tuned in to this. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Bucket list item for me here, definitely. Larry, I'm eternally grateful, not just for what you gave me as a kid, but giving this to me now as a 53-year-old man. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Take care. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Phillies legend Larry Bowa. His career reminds us that greatness isn't given, it's earned through resilience, grit, and an unrelenting belief in yourself. If his story spoke to you, please share this episode with someone who needs a reminder of what's possible when you refuse to quit. Thank you for joining me today on the Bare Essentials podcast. Until next time, keep leading, keep growing, keep fighting, and dare to roar.
This has been the Bare Essentials. Thanks for listening, and remember, never hibernate on your goals.